What's happening, Reds? It's Jamie Webster here. Just wanted to say, subscribe below. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Liverpool Connection podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dazza. I've got Mr. El Presidente, Steve, with me today, and our special guest today. It's got a brand new book, and we cannot wait to talk about that in a little bit. But it's from Mr. Mark Sweatman, and from Handmade Banners back in the UK. It's got a great book out. It just had a documentary, if I'm correct, on Redmen TV, which you should definitely go and check that one out. But pleased to have you on the show, Mark.
Thank you very much for having me. No, it's a pleasure.
I'm gonna, as I do, delve deep into your past. When you're a wee little lad, what are your first memories of supporting Liverpool?
I guess it was when I was at primary school. I suppose it was. I never had that thing where it was an automatic thing for me to support Liverpool. Because my dad wasn't interested in football at all, really, when I was little. So it was kind of the influence of me school friends when I was in primary school, and I remember people like when we were playing football in the yard, and we'd all be running around pretending to be the big players of the day, and everybody wanted. It was like, I want to be Ian Rush, and they're like, no, I'm Ian Rush, it's my ball. and then you'd go, oh, I'll be Kenny Dalglish then, and they'd divvy out who you were going to be. And there were some poor sods who were being Kevin Ratcliffe and Graham Sharp and stuff like that. So yeah, that was probably my how it began for me. And then I remember when I was about I think when I was about 7 years old, that was when I was starting to get really into it then, and I asked for my first football shirt for Christmas and all of those little rites of passage. And so it's been a long time now. I'm 44, so yeah, I've been following Liverpool for quite a long while.
Who was your favourite back then?
Well, I guess it was a little bit later than that. It was Ian Rush initially, but the one who really captured my imagination the most was John Barnes. I just absolutely loved the energy of the way that he played, the excitement, the buzz whenever he picked up the ball, and you just he had that. When Ian Rush got it, you knew it was like bang in the back of the net, and that was it. With Barnsley, it was always like you didn't know what was coming next when he picked it up. You didn't know, was he going to lay it off? Was he going to try and beat a man? Was he going to unleash a strike? I love that unpredictability about his game. It was the first kind of the first time I'd really seen that kind of magic combined with that electric pace that he had. It was just brilliant to watch.
So with your dad not being a footy fan, my dad wasn't either. He was more into rugby. Your obviously first experience was not with your dad going to Anfield. Was it just with mates?
Going to Anfield was, yeah. I actually, because I grew up in Birkenhead, my first experience of going to the football at all was going to watch Tranmere. And it was actually, funny enough, it was my dad who took me there. It was kind of when I was about 11 or so. And my mum and dad's marriage was kind of falling to bits at that time. And I think my dad was trying to he was looking for ways to kind of make a connection with me as things were kind of falling apart. And yeah, he started taking me to watch Tranmere, and the Tranmere used to play on Friday nights at that time. And they just signed John Aldridge. John Aldridge had come back from Spain. So he was like one of my favorite players when he'd been playing for Liverpool. And he'd come back from Spain and signed for Tranmere. So that was it was a bit of a thrill to be able to go and watch him at that time. So that was that was my first experience of going to the football at all. And I went to Tranmere, got on a couple of big cup runs around about that time, and so got to see them playing against some big teams. And I remember when it was a full house there. I remember the buzz being a little bit special, but it wasn't. I kind of all the way in the times that I was going to those games, it was still Liverpool was the team for me, you know. But it wasn't until I was about 18 that I managed to go to the game at Anfield on my own, and that was just it was just like taking everything to the next level. It was like, I remember walking up Walton Breck Road just in wide-eyed and just, wow, the size of the place, and then the size of the crowds making their way to the games. You knew it was going. And it was just an ordinary run-of-the-mill game. My first game, it was a 2-1 win against Sheffield Wednesday in September. I think it was 97, 98, something like that. But yeah, it was the excitement of it, and just the noise and the visual aspect of it as well. Just, I remember just feeling a bit overwhelmed, really, but just loving it. And that was it. From that moment on, I just got to as many games as I possibly could.
Yeah, that's part of the match day experience, isn't it? You know, the walking up, having your curry and your chips and your pies. Yeah, that's one thing I miss, you know, going on a regular basis. But yeah, it never gets old walking up there and seeing it, because now it's bigger.
Yeah,
I can't imagine being like a 7-year-old like I was, you know, back in the day, and now looking up at Anfield and just seeing it like tower up there in the sky. Yeah, it's just got to be amazing.
It's huge. You can say, like that. That's one of the big differences since that new main stand went up. You can see it from so much further away. You can see like it rises up above the horizon in a way that it never used to. It's pretty impressive nowadays.
Yeah, you can see Goodison Park, what's left of it. Oh, Steve.
It didn't take you long to get that shot in on our Bitters fans that listen to us every once in a while. But hey, Mark, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you spending some time with us today. And you know, we're here, you know, to hear about your story about the banners and things like that. I know a lot of it precipitated when you had, you know, your back injury, and coming from two people that have had serious back injuries, Daz and I, we kind of can, you know, feel your pain as you're going through that time, you know, and you know, being so debilitated, and then you're trying to find an outlet for your emotions. Can you take us maybe through the process that banners is what you came to help you through the time with that, and also with your other personal things you had going on?
Yeah, well, I think the story of how I started with the banners was it went back quite a long time before my injury. Like, I'd made a couple of banners and I'd really enjoyed the whole process of it. Me and my mate Steve, who I go to the games with, we'd first made one that was like a painted kind of style of banner. That was back in 2001. And then a few years later, in the run up to the Istanbul final, we set about making my first kind of stitched banner, and it was like really my processes then weren't as like well honed and refined as they are now. So it took me like quite a long time, but I found the whole thing like really absorbing, and I remember just getting really, really into it. And it's kind of one of those processes where you can shut the world out and kind of just focus on what you're doing, which is quite nice. And I've made a couple over the years, like not like very regularly or anything, but I'd made a couple more. And then it was, let me see, what year are we in now? It's 2018. I first got this injury to my back, which is like herniated discs. I've got like degenerative discs apparently, so I'm really prone to my discs herniating. And just before that time, like I'd been in the absolute shape of my life. I was in really, really good health. I was running about 40 miles a week and, running half marathons every Sunday. And that was my way of decompressing. That was like my me time, the way that I was able to kind of switch off, because I have like my day job's pretty full on. I'm a secondary school teacher, so it can get a little bit stressful at times. That was my thing. Was I'd come home from work, I'd go for a run in the evenings, put the day behind me, and then all was well with the world. And it was at that time that I then suddenly had this injury, and things just started going a bit pear-shaped for me. And around about not long after that, we had a bit of a tragedy in our family life. My wife and I had been trying for a baby, and she'd got pregnant. This was in 2018. And then we were about halfway through the pregnancy, and we lost the pregnancy. And I took it really well. We both took it really hard, and I kind of struggled to come to terms with that. And so, like, my mental health took a bit of a spiral at the same time as my physical health was taking a bit of a spiral. And then I re-aggravated this injury that I had in my back, and the second time round it was much, much worse. So I ended up in a state where I needed a cane to walk, and I was just in constant pain, and like severe pain, and keeping me up at night. And my job was becoming increasingly difficult to stay on top of. Everything was just going a bit tits up, to be honest. And yeah, there was one day when I'd gone to work. I'd woken up with all this pain again. I'd hardly slept at night, and everything just got on top of me, and I basically had a bit of a meltdown in work. And yeah, so it was one of those things where you're just trying to put a brave face on it all, and then somebody says something nice, and then that's it. All of a sudden, it was just a blubbering wreck. So I got sent home from work, and I ended up having a few months off work at that point. I went to the doctors, and he said, "Well, you're very clearly like quite severely depressed at this point." And it was the first time kind of anybody had put a name on what it was, but that's very definitely what it was. And yeah, the school arranged for me to go and see a counsellor, and that's I've been talking quite a lot there, I realise, about stuff that had nothing to do with Banners or Liverpool, but it is going somewhere, I promise. So I went. It was in a conversation with this counsellor that I got. We were basically we were trying to talk about strategies and ways that I could find to cope with the physical pain, and also to kind of have that mindfulness that I used to get from my running when I was able to run, just to try and find ways to decompress. And he said, "Is there anything you've ever done in the past that kind of gives you that headspace?" And I had a little think, and then it was just then that the banner making occurred to me, because as I said before, in the times that I've done that, I'd found it like really absorbing task to do. And so I mentioned it to him, and he said, "Well, why don't you go away for the next week or two, and next time I see you, see how you've got on with that?" And so I went away, and I made another banner. We were getting into towards the end of 2019 at this point, and it was the World Beaters banner that I made at that point, just after we'd won the Club World Cup. It was an idea that I had in my head to use like the Beatles' Fault Beatles font and make this World Beaters banner with the World Club Cup badge of honor on it. And so I spent a couple of weeks making that, and I was really happy with the results. And I did find it dead therapeutic, and it took like for the hours that I was working on it, like just an hour or so each evening, I was finding that it was helping with my mental state. And so I decided it was something that I really wanted to continue with and to persist with. But the problem I had at that point was that it's a pretty expensive hobby, because the way that I do things, like the way I see making banners for Liverpool as basically being a love letter to the football club. And of course, if you're sitting down to write a love letter, you get out your best writing paper and your best fountain pen, and you want to make sure everything looks absolutely spot on. And that's the way I do things with the banners. So I want the best possible materials, and so I use like really heavyweight cotton drill for my background, and wool felt for the designs that I make for them. So it gets really expensive. Like just the material costs about £120 per banner. So yeah, it gets pretty pricey. So it's not something that I could feasibly do to be knocking one out every week, and it just wouldn't be affordable. So I had to kind of find a way to make this. If I was going to make it into a hobby, I had to find a way to make it pay for itself. And so I just decided to like take a bit of a punt and put myself out there a little bit and start inviting people, like see if anybody, like obviously I had a few banners of my own that I could show to people and say, this is what I can do. And so I just started putting myself out there on like social media and stuff and saying, if anybody wants a banner making, I'm open to commissions. And it was in early 2020 that the first email kind of rolled in, and I did that first commission. Guy called Eugene Monaghan in over in Huyton, and then from there it all kind of took off, and I've been making roughly ever since then. I've been making basically one a week for the last couple of years. So it's been a busy time.
Yeah. Obviously Anfield is very famous for their European nights and seeing the banners and flags, and I'm sure that gives you a sense of pride when you see your work there. I kind of equate it to here in Austin where we live. We have a new professional team, and they made it a point, the supporters section made it a point to make it as kind of like that atmosphere, that Anfield atmosphere, right? There's tifos and flags and banners everywhere, and it's exciting to see because it does add to the environment of games, right? And so when you see your banners there, I'm sure you have to be kind of proud about that, right?
Yeah, it's been the biggest buzz of the whole thing. Like I don't make them although they're expensive for people to buy from me, I'm not making a huge amount of money from making these things for other people. It's just, as I say, it just basically pays for my hobby. But yeah, over the last couple of years, just seeing my work, obviously I take my own banners to the game, but seeing them popping up around the stadium, it's just been an absolute thrill. And also I've stayed in touch with all the people that have made flags for, and they're forever sending me pictures of them out on their travels with their banners. So being sent, like we're in a big WhatsApp group together, and they've always sending me photos of all their visits all over Europe, and flags hanging in piazzas in Milan and all of that kind of thing. And it's an absolute thrill. Yeah, it's been the biggest buzz of the whole thing.
Well, Daz can vouch that I'm pretty militant, because when we have our Austin, our supporters club scarves, and people travel, I message them and tell them, hey, take pictures of it on your travel. So we have a photo album of all the pictures from people from all around the world with their scarves. And I imagine you kind of feel some pride when you do get pictures from like, Madrid and Kyiv and in those places, and you say, yeah, that's my banner, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge buzz. It's great.
I'd be elbowing the next person next. That's one of my, yeah, whatever.
That's right.
No, it's true, and like the people around where I sit at the match now, they've all kind of got to know me because they know that that's the banner guy, and they're all pointing me out to each other, and yeah, I've kind of I've be I wouldn't say I've become like well known, but the people know me at the game now, and people are like, I'll be walking along and people say, all right, Mark, and it's like that never used to happen when I'd go to the match, but people know who I am, which is it's just quite nice. It's like you feel like you're a part of something.
Yeah, you'll be world famous after this podcast. I was looking through your gallery, and one of the ones that really struck me is the one that you title All Over the World for the mate Steve Lumley, and he has the 44 different places or countries that he's been to. And I thought, man, I was like, first of all, that guy has to have great stories, right? And secondly, it has all the where we've won European Cups, and I was just looking at that banner and going, man, there's a guy with stories, and now you're connected with him. And
and there was so much work went into that banner. That one took about a month to put it all together, because like each name of the countries that he's visited, they're put on a little scroll, and each letter is like cut out individually and then sewn onto the scroll. So yeah, it took absolutely ages, and it was just one of those things that you just had to keep coming back to and putting it down when you got bored, and then coming back to it with fresh eyes and going again. But yeah, he'd been in the Navy, and that had kind of facilitated his travel, and he'd managed to, as you say, he'd been to watch Liverpool in 44 different countries, which is just like, there's a lot of Reds who've got pretty extensive travel resumes, but I think that one would take some beating, having 44 countries.
So basically, you join the Navy. That's you get to see Liverpool.
Yeah, well, I think that seemed to have been his plan. Yeah.
It's not a bad plan.
He never got off the Mersey, though. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was Diaz when he was in the Navy, I think. He patrolled the Mersey.
I sure as hell didn't get to see Liverpool in the Navy.
So obviously that was one of my favorites that I saw in your gallery. Give us a story about another one that you really like, if you don't want to piss anybody off, right? So I'm sure they're all your favorites, but I'm sure there's a couple.
Yeah, I get very attached to some of them. There's some that particularly, like, some people come to me with an idea in their head, with a very clear idea of exactly what they want, and just basically ask me to reproduce it, which I'm perfectly happy to do. But that kind of work doesn't excite me as much as ideas that I've kind of had a big input into, or ideas that I've kind of come up with from scratch. And there have been a few customers who've basically come to me and said, I love what you do. I know I want a banner, but I haven't got a clue what I want. Mm-hmm. And at any given time, I've got like a stock of about 100 ideas in my head that I'd love to be able to make. And so from that point on, it's just kind of a case of trying to sell them on one of my own ideas. And they've been the ones that I found the hardest to let go of, if you like. When I've completed them, I'm looking at it thinking, am I really going to sell this to this fella? So there's been a few like that. My absolute favorite of them is it's kind of visually very different from the others, because I did it on silver fabric. Mm-hmm. That's actually how the whole idea came about. I was just browsing the website of my fabric supplier, and I saw this silver cotton background fabric that I could use, and it just got me thinking of those old silver shirts in the 80s, the Adidas ones, and I'm really, I can see you are as well, Daz. I'm really into my Adidas stuff. Yeah, I've got under my bed in the bedroom. I've got about 80 pairs of unworn ones. That
same. Yeah, I only wear like 4.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another little passion of mine. And I put the two together by making this banner. So it was on an Adidas Special theme, but it just kind of used that silver fabric and the 1980s style retro badge, just to kind of conjure up that image of those 1980s shirts. And that one, probably of all of them, is the one that I wish I could have kept.
You know, you incorporated your love for Adidas in that LA one too, right? With the 3 stripes. So that, I thought that was a pretty interesting way you did that. Mark, obviously we want to talk about your book too. So we've had so many first-time authors on our show, and every one of them has a different journey to get published. But the commonality of it all is it's hard, right? To publish a book. And so if you can kind of take us through your process, what made you want to do the book, how you went to get it published, because I know you had a Kickstarter fund, and those aren't the easiest things to get going either. So you can kind of take us through your process there.
Name the book.
Yeah,
and name the book. Well, he has a card in the back there.
So yeah, I'm gone.
There you go.
A Labour of Love.
There it is.
Craftsman of the Kop.
Yes.
Got it.
Hey, and I'll just let you know, you need to buy it in the UK and have someone bring it over, because if you buy it in the United States, it's like $60.
How is it?
Yeah, I looked earlier today. So anyway, get back to your story. Let's know how you decided you wanted to write a book. And it's pretty time.
Well, it was one of the lads in the WhatsApp group who just said to me, "Listen, Mark, you've got so many stories here from all of these people that you've made these banners for, and you've got so many photographs of all the work that you've done. It really would make a fantastic visual kind of book." And so I thought about it a little bit, and then when lockdown came, I found myself with a little bit more time on my hands than I normally would have. Obviously, no commuting time to work and all of that kind of thing. So I just had a few more hours in the day, and I thought, I'll just start putting something together with the view to self-publishing. It was. I then started looking into avenues to get it published. I did send it to a couple of publishers to see if anybody would be interested in publishing it for me, but I didn't really get any bites there. It's quite a hard thing to explain what the book is really. I then looked into how much it would be to get a commercial publisher to publish it for me if I went down that route, and I found one locally to myself. It was the cost ran into a few £1,000 to get 1,000 printed, and so I thought, well, I can't really afford to do that just on my own. So I decided to launch a Kickstarter. Thankfully, by this point, I had a pretty decent social media following, which obviously really helped, because I had a space to kind of speak to and try and get some support with it. And I ended up getting a lot of support quite quickly, really. So in terms of funding it, it didn't take me all of that long, really. Once I'd launched that Kickstarter, it was funded within a few days. Mm-hmm. So that, I was fortunate in that regard, and there seemed to be a good appetite for it, which is great.
I wanted to, because obviously, I think with the pandemic as well, the some of the good things that have come out is people have been able to do what they've really wanted to do. Again, write a book, do a piece of painting. I mean, for you, how long did it take for you to actually get the book together?
In terms of producing the layouts on the pages, that was the slow bit. Actually, when it came to writing it, the text came to about 35,000 words, and I found it just kind of flowed out of me, really, because there was a lot of I'd written a lot as I'd made the banners. I'd been blogging them on my website anyway, so I had kind of the framework for what I was going to write already in there, and I was just kind of putting the flesh on the bones of that, really. So I found that it kind of wrote itself. It was more in the producing the layouts of the page, and then I had to there was some photo. Obviously, I didn't just want to include photos of my banner. I wanted it to have a bit more visual variety, and so I had to buy rights to use some photographs of players and stuff from various photo suppliers like Getty and Alamy and people like that. And so that took a long time, and it took a bit of hard work as well. So I think from beginning to end, the whole process took me about 4 or 5 months. But that was mostly in the kind of production stage rather than the writing. The writing was quite quick.
And you were doing banners at the same time as well, right?
Oh yeah, and teaching full time.
Your missus must have loved you.
Absolutely, yeah. She's
bang on the ceiling. When you going to stop?
Hey, Mark, I want to ask you a question. Obviously, in the past we've had Peter Carney on our show. Obviously he does the banners at Anfield, the bigger ones. And do you ever collaborate with him? Do you speak to him? And has he ever asked you, hey, take over this when I want to retire?
I've met Peter a few times, and I've spoken to him a few times on the phone as well. And it was very, as you probably know, he was in charge of arranging when we were in lockdown and we had the behind closed doors games. He was in charge of arranging that display, and it was a real honor for me that he invited me to put a couple of my banners on the Kop there during that time. And it was great to have his kind of thumbs up and his approval of what I do. He did say to me, I've seen what you do and it's absolutely fantastic. And that was a real, he's like the godfather of Liverpool banners. So to get his stamp of approval really meant a lot to me. And the other person that I'm in touch with in the kind of banner making community is Emma Norbury. I don't know if you know of her work, but she does all of the big wave banners by 1906. And she's just a fantastically talented artist, and she's got a completely different way of going about things. To me, it's just it's like chalk and cheese, but they both kind of add to the overall spectacle of the Kop. So I think we're both big admirers of each other's work and what each other do, and it's nice to be a part of that kind of threesome of people who are producing lots for the Kop at the moment.
I haven't been to Anfield since 2016, so and I know Diaz has been there, plenty of times. But for people that are not able to go to Anfield and they're just watching the game on the telly, right? I think they really appreciate what all three of you guys are doing to help, with the environment, especially visually, to look at the Kop and see all the flags and banners, during a match, especially a European night. It takes you there, right? And so we appreciate for all the work you do. Obviously, you're trying to make it a business, but you don't do that type of work without being passionate about the club either. So absolutely,
I mean that's the number one thing. Is it's a passion project. Like in the title of my book, it's a labor of love. That you do it because it's a way of expressing that passion that you have for the club that you love.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Des. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's another part of Liverpool Football Club that we love. And I'm glad yourself, Emma, and Peter are in the limelight, because without those, it's just another football club. You know what I mean? Without the banners, without the flags, it's just another football club. That's one of the reasons I just love this team. You know? Yeah,
well, it's certainly each football club you care to mention has its own fan culture, but I think ours is more unique than any other I can think of. Certainly in British football, just the originality of it, really. That like when you think of the songs that we come up with, they don't just follow the usual tunes that everybody else uses. They all copy us, and it's the same. It's the same in the visual aspect as well. We're like you see other fans bring in flags to games, but they're generally pretty ordinary and just like the name of a town written on a St. George's cross. But we do things a little bit more creatively, I guess, and it's part of what makes us special.
Yeah,
I know that
Scow's humor is definitely special. That's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a part of it too. A lot. I mean, that I guess the funny flags. There are lots of funny flags that do the rounds, and I think they're more geared towards like single use, if you like. Like they tend to be more quickly produced, and it's like for one occasion. The stuff that I do probably isn't. It's not really the place to put a gag, because they're pretty. I like to think of them as kind of, because of the quality and the workmanship that goes into them, they're kind of like heirloom pieces. I like to. One thing I said a little while ago in that interview that I did with Red Men TV, was that I like the notion that in 100 years' time, somebody might find one of my flags, like in a loft of a house when they're clearing the house out and something, might find one of my flags and think, wow. And I want it to be so beautiful that nobody could possibly even if they don't know what it is, that they wouldn't possibly contemplate throwing it in the bin, so yeah, that's important to me, is just to have that quality, that and I like also the idea that people will hand them down from generation to generation, and that long after I'm gone, a little piece of me might still be there flying on the Kop.
Yeah. So to take the piss out of our good mate Mark Johnson, Jono. So these are the type of banners that you wouldn't leave at a hotel if you're drunk, right? So I'm just gonna ask.
No, you definitely tie them to yourself in some way, I think.
But somehow he's going to blame me for allowing him to leave the banners there. But anyway, that's another story. Hey, you referenced John Barnes earlier as your favorite player. He's my favorite player, and we were so honored to bring him to Austin as part of our Legends Night series. What a great individual, obviously legendary player. And just like you said, when he had the ball, there was a certain excitement to him. You never knew. I don't even think he knew what he was going to do half the time, right? I'm kind of equating that to new signing Luis Diaz. And what are your thoughts, and what do you hear from on the ground there, since we're not back in Liverpool?
There's a lot of excitement about him. That he's, as you say, has that unpredictability to him. But he seemed that what's impressed so much about him is that he seems to have just walked straight into the club, and he knows exactly what everything's all about. He's straight up with the pace of the English game, which isn't always the case for players coming from the European leagues. But he's what he's contributed in the games that he's played so far, I think, has got given the players around him a real spark as well. Everybody can see that he's bringing something fresh to the team. And I think, although it sounds ridiculous to say that £40 million could possibly be a bargain for anything, I think in today's football market, it does seem to be a real snip. I think he's probably already worth double that, just based on the contributions he's made so far.
Yeah, and it seems like he's been not just his style of play, but as evident by the celebrations after the League Cup final. Just he seems that like he gets the attitude of the team already, right? And
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's fun to see, and hopefully there's more trophies down the road here in the next couple of months.
And the competition that there is now in that in attack, it just, you know, I think it will over the remainder of the season. I think it's going to focus a few minds, and people aren't guaranteed of a starting spot anymore. And I think that's never a bad thing at a football club.
It's amazing what one person, you know, buying Diaz and having no injuries, you know, because everybody complained we didn't have a squad depth, but they didn't realise that half our players were always injured. Now they're back and we've got Diaz. We just, you know, apart from the Inter game, we've looked boss. Yeah,
and I think people have over-egged like what happened with the Inter game as well. It was just one of those nights in front of goal. Really hit the woodwork 3 times. Diaz had that one basically that nobody could quite understand how the lad had managed to block it. But if any of those chances had gone in, I was really annoyed because I had a bet on Matic to score the first goal, and he leapt like a salmon and nodded it against the bar. But yeah, I think on any other night, one of those chances goes in, and you're home and hosed, aren't you? One goal was all it would have taken to put that game completely to bed, and everybody would have had a really relaxing evening. As it was, they scored the first goal, and we had a nervy half hour towards the end. But it was really the damage. We did the damage in Milan, didn't we? And it didn't concern. Like, I didn't particularly enjoy what I watched on Tuesday night, but nor did it concern me unduly. Yeah, the right result at the end, you know. So, you know, that's what I mean. Like, job done, first leg. And you were there, weren't you, Mark? Yeah. So, to me, watching it on the telly, it looked like they didn't even get out of second gear. They really didn't. Klopp had probably, like, to me, told them, like, look, just conserve energy. You know, just do the passing the ball short and just keep it, you know, possession-wise. And possession-wise, it was all. To be fair, I was really impressed by what Inter did. I thought they were. They showed why they were the champions of Italy in that second leg. I thought that their energy in the press was just enormous. I don't know how they kept it up for as long as they did. Obviously, that a little bit of the thrust went out of that when they went down to 10 men, which came at a pretty good time for us, I'd say. But no, I thought they were pretty impressive, and they probably deserved to win on the night, really, because of the work that they put in. But as I was saying to my mate on the walk back to the car after the game, if you're going to lose one game in March, that's the one you want to lose, isn't it? The one where you're already 2-0 up before you played it. Didn't matter. We'll win the rest of them. Happy days.
Yeah, it seemed like they really went into that tie thinking this is a 2-legged affair. This is the second half. We're up by 2 goals. You know, let's just maintain. Let's get out of here and move on to the next game. And I think, you know, the game management obviously was different from what we've seen in the last month or so. But I think the situation was so different from what we've had in the last month. This wasn't a do or die, have to win game, right? So
absolutely, yeah. And at half time, you know, there were no complaints at all. Everything was hunky dory at half time, and even the goal that they scored, it took an absolute worldie to beat the keeper on the night. And what they didn't really produce all that much else in terms of clear-cut chance. There's nothing that got us unduly worried. So yeah, I thought it was quite a controlled performance, really. I know we lost, and we're not used to losing anymore. So some people absolutely lose their heads when we do.
Yeah.
But
we're also not used to like being still in 3 competitions.
I know.
It's
I know.
mental. Like I said on
there seems to be people who don't enjoy that. You know, it's like
there's lots of people. But on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, just enjoy the ride. It's the best team I can remember us ever having.
Exactly.
There's some people that won't. We could win all 4 cups. I'm not going to be happy, right? They'll be thinking about net spend and no transfers and FSG out, and it's like, give it a break, man. Enjoy the ride, like you said. Everybody is enjoying the ride, but for some reason some people can't. Then I'm like, okay, go ahead. I don't want to be with you at a party. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can't enjoy this,
right?
Why are you a football supporter?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, before we go, please check out Mark's website. It's handmadebanners.co.uk. Check out his book, A Labour of Love, The Craftsman of the Kop. You can buy it on Amazon, right? I do believe.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do direct to Mark, I'm sure Mark will.
Yeah, to be honest, it's better for me if you buy it directly from the website.
Money in the pocket.
Yeah, if you'd rather make me rich than Steve Jobs, then get it straight from me, because he takes about half my money. You
heard it from Mark first. Give him the money.
That's right. Go directly to his website.
Yeah. Well, we from me and Steve, we really appreciate you coming on, spending a bit of an hour of your day. Like we said, we always enjoy the stories. This is what this football club's all about. That's why we love this football club.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure joining you boys, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Cheers.
What's happening, Reds? It's Jamie Webster here. Just wanted to say, subscribe below. Thank you very much.